And I know The Athletic did this earlier this week. It's kind of look at all 30 teams, where they are, in the postseason, in the offseason so far. And The Athletic gave the Cardinals a B grade because they were aggressive about bringing in, a lot of innings guys, and Sonny Gray, who was second in the Cy Young vote last year for the Twins in the American League. So they gave the Cardinals a B. The Bleacher Report, and they do a pretty good job covering baseball. They had the 10 teams that have helped themselves the most this offseason. They had the Cardinals on the list.
Okay.
They raised some concern because, again, no one's saying the Cardinals have just cornered the market and signed every great player there is. So if you're going to do this the right way, you're going to say, listen, right now it looks like they're one of the 10 best teams in terms of improvement so far in the offseason. But, yeah, you have to wonder about will these starters hold up, that kind of thing. And I was really curious about David Schoenfield of ESPN, and I'm not sure what's going on there because sometimes it's like, does the smartest guy in the room complex come into play?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because he's got the Cardinals as a C-plus grade. Now, listen, there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not saying he's wrong in saying C-plus. It's not like he said an F or a D. But by the way, I'm not Fred Bird anyway. I don't care. I'm just telling you what other people see outside the market. So he's got a C-plus grade, and he says they needed to fix their rotation, so they bulldozed their way into free agency. Not exactly what the Cardinals like to do, and they signed Sonny Gray, Kyle Gibson, Lance Lynn. The common denominator, all three chewed up innings in 2023, combining for 560 innings, as each ranked in the top 25 in the majors. It's a plan, although I wouldn't expect Gray to repeat his Cy Young runner-up performance. You're also looking at a 34-year-old, 36-year-old, 37-year-old, respectively, so it could all backfire as well. Now, see, I think that's a fair way to look at it. And I want to thank David for reading my stuff because I pulled a lot of the stuff out of there. One thing to do, they haven't yet addressed a bullpen that ranked, way down in ERA. The payroll is still just where it was last year and well under the tax threshold. Ramp that up and sign Josh Hader. Dream on, David. Ain't gonna happen. And they are, if you want to get technical about it, their payroll's up. But they do need more sure things, more certainty in their bullpen. They have gotten some interesting guys. The Heim Bloom connection might pay off, but we don't know that until we see these guys perform. Now, here's where I'm talking about the smartest guy in the room complex.
Okay.
The Milwaukee Brewers, he has the Brewers grade in the offseason so far, a B. Huh?
Really?
Huh? First of all, they lost the best manager in baseball. Well, maybe second to Bruce Bochy. And he not only that, he goes to he goes to a hated rival, the Cubs, Craig Counsell. He says they haven't done anything to supplement the major league roster, but I'll give this offseason a strong grade anyway after they signed prospect Jackson Chourio to an 8-year, $82 million contract that includes 2 team options. Okay, that's a smart move. I agree. But I'm not sure what that has to do with like this offseason in terms of 2024. Listen, Chourio could turn out to be a really, a superstar type player, but I don't think it's going to be in 2024. I don't even know if he'll be in the major leagues until later in 2024. So I'm a little confused. Their manager goes to the Cubs, highly regarded, either the best manager in baseball or the second best, and clearly the best manager in the division. And they have not really upgraded the roster at all. And they've got Brandon Woodruff hurt. They haven't really replaced him. And they are sending signals that they want to keep Corbin Burns instead of trading him. Okay, I'm going to wait and see that one. But for now, I'll take their word on it because they're a pretty honest organization from what I can tell. So how in the world are the Brewers a B? I'm not saying this because I'm trying to be a honk for the Cardinals. What have they done?
Yeah, I'm with you on this one.
See, but that's kind of what everybody's got to try to be the smartest person in the world, you know? And it's an irritating part of our media today. Maybe I'm guilty of it sometimes because I'm Mr. Smarty Pants with all my fancy stats, right? But I don't do that because I'm copping an attitude. I do that because I like to get to the heart of the matter. That's all, right?
Yeah, I'll just say I'm making that statement that they're a B. I get that you can look at things differently, or you want to. That's part of what he's doing. But when you lose your manager and he goes to the rival, I mean that's an F. That's F. That's a fail, big time fail. And the only thing that can overcome that is if you supplement your roster with some legitimate talent, and that's not what they've done this year.
Right.
And again, that's just my opinion on this one, but they're in a lot of trouble, I think. I know they're going to try and finagle some things, and Churio, that's great. They signed him. I wouldn't even give that much of a plus because you already drafted him. He was already with you. The fact that you gave him money doesn't allow me to give you a extra plus in your off-season grades. They've moved some of their pitching guys that were on their roster a year ago. That's going to hurt them. There's not a whole lot of guys there. They're going to be able to just throw up there and replace some of those arms. I mean, arms, when you're the Milwaukee Brewers that are healthy and that have helped you, and you lose those, that's like gold. You're losing gold. I would disagree with that one. That's one I just go, oh boy. I'm nowhere near a B on this one. A C at best, and I wouldn't even give it a C because, like I said, when the manager leaves, and everybody knows he has been probably the biggest part of that organization's success in recent times since he's been there, and you lose that, and I'm sorry, Pat Murphy, you might be a nice guy and you might have some success, but you're not on the level with Craig Counsell. I just don't see that one. Ooh.
Yeah, I don't see it either. And let me throw a couple other things in there. He's got, and I think he's spot on with a lot of these. Of course, he's got the Pittsburgh Pirates at a C, and they are kind of a C. They've made some incremental moves, and it's okay. They're not ready to go nuts yet. He's got the Orioles at a D, and I agree with that. Actually, that's a good one. I mean, they signed Craig Kimbrell. And that's not exactly a sure thing. Mike Elias, their general manager, has done an incredible job with the teardown and the rebuild. But, man, they need to make a real impact move in terms of their starting rotation. And, listen, say what you want about Kyle Gibson last year, and he got a lot of run support. But he was 15-9, and because of the run support. But he also, his fielding independent ERA was about 4.13. Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. And he gave him a ton of innings. And I always just, again, I scratch my head because I'm always wondering why people seem to think he's like a marginal starting pitcher. He did a hell of a job for the Orioles last year, and he's not there anymore.
It's a big miss, right?
Yeah, it is. I mean, and he wanted to pitch here because him and his family live in Washington, Missouri. Sorry, and they love it here. And he's always wanted to pitch for the Cardinals, so they got what they wanted, and they're happy, and we're happy. And I think Cardinals fans are going to love him. But I don't understand what the Orioles are doing. I really don't. I mean, go get Dylan Cease. Go. I mean, there's things you can do. Go try to tempt the Brewers for Burns. I would be reluctant to go nuts than getting Shane Bieber because there's some warning signs there with injuries. But there's all kinds of things they could do. There's a lot of starters out there. He did give the Chicago Cubs an F. Well, I would say so because they have done nothing. It's really strange. I know why they're waiting. I do. I know why they're waiting. But it's just so strange to be sitting here on the 9th of January, and the Cubs have not made one roster move as far as adding somebody or spending any money. None. Zero. And listen, you take Bellinger off that team. He was worth 4.4 wins above replacement. And Stroman, even though he was injured late in the year, Stroman was a pretty good starter for them until the point in time he got hurt. So what are you going to do if you don't get you're going to have to sort of compensate for their losses, although I'm sure they're still hanging around thinking they got a good chance at Bellinger. We'll see, because Scott Boras wants $200+ million for him. And there are some starting pitchers out there, but they do warrant an F. He's got Seattle as an F, I agree. Some of the teams that really don't matter, the Angels are an F because you could put that on them every year. The Giants, D-. I kind of feel sorry for the Giants at this point. So, well, why would you feel sorry for them? Well, maybe I don't. They try and they try and they try and they try and they offer all kinds of crazy money. Nobody wants to play for them. I just find that fascinating.
It is an interesting scenario, right? Again, I'm going to say this because I look at games in that ballpark and go, gee whiz, how could you not want to play in that ballpark a lot?
Listen, California's an expensive place to live. Northern California is an expensive place to live. The cost of housing is unbelievable, but you also, it's just such a gorgeous place with the scenery around the ballpark, just driving around. Now, San Francisco City itself, the city part of San Francisco.
Yep.
A lot of bad stuff's been happening. They're having problems. They get a lot of terrible publicity, and I'm sure in some way that affects the outside view of living in San Francisco. But listen, they have this thing called suburbs.
Yes.
I don't think any ball players making millions of dollars a year. I don't think they're going to be living down there where all the homeless issues are. I doubt that anyone's going to be buying down there. However, there are some absolutely gorgeous places to live in San Francisco if you can afford it, and they can afford it. So I'm a little confused by the disconnect there.
I'm with you on that one. That one, because they've offered a lot of different contracts in the last 3 or 4 years.
They have,
and everyone is
no,
we're not interested.
So they dump Haniger, and because they overpaid for him because they're so desperate for, quote, a star. Cardinals fans, you could have it worse. I'm not saying you shouldn't be frustrated, but I'm saying you could have it worse. San Francisco won 101 games in 2021, I believe. Yeah. And now nobody wants to play for him. I mean, Aaron Judge told him no. Ohtani's like, no thank you. Yamamoto, no thank you. I mean, on and on and on. They did have that deal tentatively for Carlos Correa last offseason until he flunked the physical. And the Giants weren't wrong for flunking him there. There's some issues. But they just can't get anyone to say yes. Even though the ballpark is a gem and it's right there on the edge of the bay, it's just a beautiful place to watch a game. Boy, their crowds are dwindling. It's just really strange, and they're so desperate. I mean, they gave that Korean center fielder Jung-Ho Lee 6 years, $113 million, which feels I don't know. I could be wrong. It feels awfully pricey. For a guy,
too, yeah.
and I read a lot about him, and people think he might be a pretty good major league player. Might. There's not the high confidence level that you read when you get the reports on some of the other free agents from Asia.
Mm-hmm.
This guy's kind of like, well, type of thing. So they're overpaying. And anyway, so they did that last offseason by throwing all kinds of crazy money at Mitch Haniger. Stupid contract. So they get Robbie. So they send him back to Seattle to offload the salary. They also dump DeSclafani's salary, and they get Robbie Ray. Now, it's a salary dump. And you say, well, Robbie Ray won a Cy Young. What 2 years ago? He won a Cy Young, or whenever that was. I think it was 2 years ago. Yeah, he did. But he missed all of last season, and he's not expected to return this season until late July, early August. And then he can become a free agent if he wants. But they're so desperate to get names, I got to think that front office is in big time trouble if they soil the bed again this season, and they can't seem to make any kind of deals when they swing for the fences. They're trying hard. Nobody wants them. Nobody wants to be there.
It's such a perplexing thing. I mean, Farhan Saidi, he was given credit for being a smart guy, knowing how, but it's like you said, he's like standing there with bags of money. Please come here. And everybody's saying, no, we'll pass. Maybe they moved on from Kepler. Maybe he's the reason. Maybe nobody wanted to play for him. I don't know. There's just a lot that's not right with that situation, because it wasn't that long ago, Bernie. They were one of the darlings of baseball.
No doubt.
Bochy obviously had a lot to do with that, but still, they had a lot of talent and 3 world championships in there, and it is just kind of gone to rubble right now.
You know, and I'm looking at this, and again, this is a good reference point. Dave Schoenfield, I know I was like teasing him a little for trying to be the smartest guy in the room because I didn't understand the disconnect between the Cardinals' offseason grade and the Brewers. It just didn't make any sense to me. But that's okay. He's pretty good at what he does. He's real good most of the time. But you know, the teams that are considered to be superior to the Cardinals, I think, you know, a lot of them are getting hammered. I mean, the Houston Astros got a D grade for their offseason so far. The Mets with a D. The Blue Jays with a D minus. The Twins for a D minus, although I know they're worried about their local TV deal. Giants D minus. Cubs F. So I do think, relatively speaking, I do think the Cardinals, again, the key word, relative. Relatively speaking, they've had a pretty good offseason compared to a lot of teams. That's all.
They have addressed their issues. They went after it early and addressed what, you know, in their eyes, what their issues were, and addressed them with what they think is good value. There is some good value in some of that. I know many of us would go, oh, why not spend more? Agreed. But they did address things. Whereas, like you said, with this, there's a lot of teams that are just sitting there, and you go, like the Cubs thing is really odd. Because, Bernie, I think if you're the Cubs and you look at what you got and where you were and you make a couple additions, you might be the favorite in the division right now, maybe more so than the Reds, if you made some additions. Yet they're just sitting there doing nothing, which is odd.
Still a long way to go.
Yeah.
Scott Borisel at some point will, a domino will fall, I guess is the best way to put it, you know?
Yes. Let's just say they were to sign Bellinger. Would you already go, oh, it's a B grade, an A grade, or would you go, well, you're still the same team you were when you finished?
You'd probably move them up to at least a C, because
yeah,
it's like the same team you have, but then you still need to get a starting pitcher.
Yes.
I think Cubs fans are getting a little restless.
I would.
You know?
It's there for the taking. It really is right now.
So anyway, it's this stuff's always kind of fun. But, you look at some of the projections, and I had one earlier. Now I can't find it. But they actually have some projected win totals at Fangraphs, and for some reason I can't find it. So I'll continue to look, however. And, the Cardinals in terms of I find this interesting in terms of, again, it's not that I want to build everything on wins above replacement, right?
Yep.
But it's just that they have it laid out so nicely in terms of that, So when it comes to position players in Major League Baseball, the Cardinals are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8th in the majors with a projected WAR of 26.3. That's with their hitters, basically, is what we're talking about. So they're 8th. And what about their pitching? And this is what's interesting to me. And I think this is where the needle did move when they signed those 3 starters. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So in terms of projected wins above replacement in terms of pitching, they rank 10th. So that's really interesting because, again, the local mood is pretty foul. And again, I'm not going to repeat a big part of my first segment today. But a lot of it is just kind of the turning their off season into a one issue discussion. In other words, there's way too many people that the only issue they're interested in is the size of the payroll, and they're ignoring a lot of other factors that will have a lot to do with whether the Cardinals go up or down or stay down in 2024. I mean, the team that they've been putting together, and again, this is neutral stuff. This is the Zips forecast. This is no sports writers. These are all projections that Major League Baseball teams use. They all have their own models for this. But if you look at where the Cardinals are right now, subject to change, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Right now, the only teams with a higher projected wins above replacement are the Braves, Dodgers, Astros, Yankees, Blue Jays, Phillies, Cardinals.
That high?
Yeah.
Wow.
But again, there is an absolute fixation on nothing but payroll. Instead of sort of acknowledging, okay, well, they got stronger here. They offloaded some people that they're going to be better because they're no longer here. I thought our friend Dane Perry, pardon me, from Birdie Work in CBS Sports, he wrote an interesting piece. Now, I wrote something a little similar a few weeks ago, but he went into greater detail and it was really, really good. When you evaluate the Cardinals bullpen, you know the best way to kind of start it. And listen, you don't have to preemptively holler at me because I know what you're saying. Well, you're saying they don't have enough substance, enough proven things. That's right, they don't. They don't. Totally agree. Been harping about this for a long time this winter. But Dane Perry points out the one thing you got to do when you start to assess the bullpen guys that they're lining up, at least with right now, it's all relative to who they dumped and got rid of. All these guys passing through town last summer who weren't even major league pitchers. Let's be totally honest about it.
Yep.
They had a lot of guys in the bullpen who were minor league pitchers. And so just getting them out of there, you're going to be better. How much better? Well, that is the question, right? But your bullpen really can't help but get better because you had so much debris down there. No, nothing about who they are as human beings, but you had so much junk. Their bullpen, was kind of like a landfill or something,
It really was.
Oh, there's who is this? Who's that guy?
Casey Lawrence, Andy.
Yeah, there's Casey Lawrence over there. Gersh, go get him. He's over there. But you see that old bent up, mangled bicycle in the landfill? Look under there. I think you see Casey Lawrence. So just by clearing all that debris out, you can't help but have a better bullpen. But again, I just find it really, really fascinating. In projected wins above replacement right now, the Cardinals are number 8 in Major League Baseball going into 2024. And but if locally, the overwhelming mood is that they suck, they stink. Maybe they'll do a little better, but they're not going to go anywhere near the playoffs. They haven't spent enough money. That's number one. Number two is they haven't spent enough money. Number three is they haven't spent enough money. Number 4 on the list, they haven't spent enough money. Number 5, number 6, number 7, number 8. No, they haven't spent enough money. That's it. It's like it's almost like what they refer to in politics, single-issue voters, right?
Yeah. We
got a lot of single-issue voters in the Cardinals fan base.
That is very true.
And, I'm playing devil's advocate here. I ain't trying to troll anyone. I'm not trying to do the hot take thing. This is the way my brain works. I'm very pragmatic. And I see, listen, I've been much, much more positive about the 3 starting pitching signings than most people. And for good reason. I've backed it up with every stat that there is to tell you why innings are important and quality starts are important. And yet you have the deniers who insist that, no, it's not true. It's 100% true, and the facts bear it out. Facts going back years, 5-6 years at least. I mean, I did all my studies on this. You get 6+ innings from a starter, your winning percentage is so much better than when you don't. You get a quality start from a starting pitcher. Last year when the Cardinals got one of those babies, what were they? Sometimes I forget my own stat. They were 33-15. That was a wretched, horrible team. But when they got a quality start, they were 33-15.
That's outstanding.
Right?
Yes, very much so.
But you have people, our quality starts, yeah, it's worthless. Yeah, winning percentage doesn't say that. Right? So anyway, I'm just fascinated by this. According to a highly respected projection system, the Cardinals right now are sitting there at 8th in wins above replacement. As of right now, where their roster is right now. 8th. Puts them ahead of the Rays, the Mets, the Orioles, the Rangers, the Diamondbacks, the Padres, the Guardians, the Red Sox, the Brewers, the Cubs, the Reds, the Marlins, right on down the list. But their payroll, but their payroll. I don't know.
I got a text here. It says,
I repeat, I wish it was higher, but I'm not a single-issue voter, metaphorically speaking. I'm not. That's all.
No. Text says, Bernie, I love your numbers, but, man, when they cry poor, it just turns me off.
No, I agree with that. The messaging has not been good. I agree with that. I totally agree with that. Because people don't want to hear it, right?
Yeah, it's true. I mean, we've had people on the show. I know Joe Sheehan's one, and we're going to probably try and get him on later this week, where he says, hey, anybody can spend money. The money's there. Just certain teams just don't spend it, you know?
He's right about that. He's right about that. But we had a text message earlier you were telling me about, some guy actually complained because when I was talking about what a miracle it's been the way that the Tampa Bay Rays, when Heim Bloom was there, before that Andrew Friedman, how they find these tremendous values in putting together a roster where they pay a lot lower than other teams pay for players who are better than the big spenders pay for a similar type player. Mm-hmm. And the payroll efficiency is outstanding, and that's how a team in a small market with terrible attendance and a low payroll manages to kick the asses of the big boys all the time. And what did the guy say? It's like, well, they've never had any money down there. Well, what the hell does that mean? That's exactly my point. They don't have money. Not relative to most of the teams in baseball anyway, right?
Yep. Another text.
But they still win more than a lot of the big spenders do.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I'm trying to say.
Another text. I think the DeWitts always watch their funds. That hasn't changed through the years. What has changed is Mo has bumbled and given away talented players for nothing. He says Tony and Whitey would have supplement a homegrown lineup with a few free agents. They knew which players to keep and who to trade.
See, I love that text message because it gets to the heart of the matter. You haven't he mentioned or she mentioned correctly. Bill DeWitt, in terms of his payroll philosophy, has been pretty damn consistent through the years. It just hasn't wavered. It hasn't just fluctuated wildly. Now, I think he does have to spend more because other teams are spending more. So it's all, again, here's my word of the day. It's all relative. But they've never been a huge spender, and I guess I don't know why we would expect him to be one now when they still, they went out and made 3 moves to strengthen their rotation. And if those guys hold up, they should be able to strengthen their rotation with them. But it isn't, again, it's not a single issue matter, payroll. And that's why I love that text message, because that person gets it. It's personnel judgments. It's roster construction and making the best use of your resources. it's not taking wild swings at free agency. It's, and knowing that you're not so sure about a guy. They weren't totally sure about Dexter Fowler. They had some doubt, but they signed him. They gave him $82.5 million anyway. It's just the swing and the misses on stuff you should not swing and miss on, right?
Yes.
The fact that they let their pitching slide, which is just reprehensible because it's been such an existing strength. And I gave that number earlier, and it was really early in the show, but I really do want to repeat it because it's easy to understand and it's really powerful, I think. The Cardinals, let me find this here. Okay, I got it. From 2015 through 2019, that's 5 seasons. If you take all of their pitchers, starters, and bullpen guys, all of their pitchers who were drafted or signed as amateurs and developed by the Cardinals, homegrown pitchers, in other words, right? Over those 5 seasons, they got, I'm going to round it off to 62 wins above replacement from their homegrown pitchers, right?
Yep.
5 years ending in 2019. All right, what about the next 5? 2019 through 23. And I know that 2020 was shortened, but still, that doesn't change the reality. The previous 5 seasons, homegrown pitchers that they developed, 12 wins above replacement.
Oh, man. Still, just sounds awful.
62, 5 years preceding this block of 5, 62 wins above replacement, homegrown, your organizationally developed pitchers, 62 wins above replacement over that time. And then the next 5-year segment, 12 wins above replacement from your homegrown pitchers. See, just like the point that was made by that excellent text message, which is, Bill DeWitt's always had the same payroll type of structure. The real problem is that they've just made too many mistakes in their judgment of personnel, and that's exactly right. And they let something that they built their foundation on, pitching, they let that slide because they lost their way in terms of scouting, drafting, developing young pitching. They're really, really bad at it. And that's something they have got to change, or else every single year they're going to be scrambling for pitching. Right?
Absolutely. One more text on this.
Sure.
Texter says, with this lack of homegrown pitching, doesn't it reflect on the people who conduct the draft for the Cardinals?
Yeah, of course it does. Now, the thing I don't know about the behind-the-scenes stuff in the so-called war room, who has the final say on this stuff. But the bottom line, and this applies to Randy Flores as well, they just have not done well in recent years as far as drafting pitchers. And, for those who missed it earlier, and I don't mind repeating it because this was a long time ago in the show, so it's no problem for me to go over this again, and it's not really complicated. And I mean that not to be snarky. I mean, it's just not a long, detailed thing. And let me find this. Let me see. Where do I have this? And I apologize to y'all. The way that they've been drafting from 2015 through 2018, the Cardinals used first-round draft choices on starting pitchers Jake Woodford, Dakota Hudson, and Griffin Roberts. And they used a second-rounder on Connor Jones. And they used another one on like a third-rounder. I forget his name, but I did write it down. The point being, all these guys, all these pitchers that they used top 3 rounds, selections in the top 3 rounds, right? They're all gone. They're not even in the organization anymore, and that's not that long. That's not a long time ago. I mean, that's just swing and miss, swing and miss, swing and miss, swing and miss, over and over and over again, right?
You cannot survive that way. You just can't do that.
And they got some dudes that have some promise. Tin Kent's has some promise. Is he going to hold up physically? They baby him. They're so cautious and scared about innings with him. He's a really talented kid. I personally think Gordon Graceffo's got a chance to be good. He just had an injury-type sidetrack season in 2023, but it wasn't something that's like, oh, my gosh, his shoulder went bad, and you know how that is. They shut him down. They were smart, and then he never really got back in sync. I don't know about McCreevy. I just don't know. I'm not giving up on him. He was a first-round pick. I don't know about him, and I'm not going to just say he's a bum. He's not going to make it. And I'm sure as heck not going to say, well, he kind of reminds me of Waino. I'm not going to do that stuff.
Yeah,
I don't know. No. The old jury's still out on him. I think they have some other guys like Ian Bedell that could turn into something. They have a few of those guys, but they're such a long way off. It's too early to tell, Connor Jerpy is another one.
Yep.
He might emerge. And I didn't include them in the accounting because they were just drafted, within the last 3 years. And so, it's not always like a Michael Wacha thing where they almost immediately jump to the big leagues. Sometimes it does take a while to transverse your way to the major leagues. But no, you are not. The Cardinals are not going to be the Cardinals if they can't get back to hitting it rich with the pitching that they draft and develop. It's just not going to happen. And when you lose your foundation, you're in trouble. It just you're just always kind of spinning your wheels. You're always chasing your own tail. You're always scrambling. You're sort of like buying lotto tickets. Well, suppose maybe Lance Lynn will come in here. It's we only spent $10 million. That's just a short stack of lotto day. Maybe he'll be back be like the 2017 Lance Lynn or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
You're always buying lotto tickets, metaphorically speaking.
One thing I will be interested to see with Heim Bloom on board now is if he will do like one of the things with Tampa, because we talked about his time in Tampa. Will he just see the Cardinals now just randomly pick up a guy who's trying to be passed through waivers, and all of a sudden you realize, hey, this guy's
right
can do something. I mean, that's one of the things they do. You see it all during the season, Bernie. Oh, this player just got claimed. He was trying to send him back down, and boom, next thing you know, this guy's playing an integral part in somebody's bullpen somewhere along the line. The Cardinals haven't done that like forever, and I want to see if maybe that'll be part of his addition to this organization. Can he just go, hey, that's a guy who can help us by doing this. Let's pick him up, and a couple weeks later he'll be here helping the ball.
Well, that's his MO.
Yeah.
He's done that a lot.
I hope he can bring that to this organization because they haven't done it.
Joe Sheehan had some examples, and I don't have the copy of that newsletter that day with me, but I'll do some homework, where Heim Bloom, even in Boston, found some pitchers that no one really thought were much of anything,
Mm-hmm.
and they actually turned out pretty well. That's he's just got a kind of a built-in acumen for this, and his track record shows it. So
it's needed, that's for sure.
Tampa Bay Rays, by the way, this team that's near the bottom of the payroll rankings every year, and again, Heim Bloom had a lot to do with just constantly finding pitching at low cost and excellent value, which is the best you can have, really.
Mm-hmm.
When you get a lot of those guys. So since the start of 2018, the only teams in the majors with higher winning percentage are the Dodgers, the Astros, and the Braves. I'm thinking maybe those three teams spent a hell of a lot more money than Tampa Bay. I'm being facetious. Of course they did.